we're so distracted and so overwhelmed by politics. Is politics going well? Do we have good leaders, political leaders? It's a good question. It's an important issue. That's not how you measure the world. The world is not, the goodness of the world is not measured by politicians.
So I guess to begin, perhaps just to get an overall sense from you of what you see is going on. I have a lot of thoughts and questions to ask. I've thought of it in terms of some of the mental health issues that I know you have a great deal of expertise with, the anxiety, the depression, the loneliness that's going on, also the interpersonal things, relationships, children. And I think there's some existential questions that is raising for a lot of people. What is the meaning of this all? What does the future bring? Is there a future? I think there's so many areas we can go with this. So I'd like to actually ask you to start.
The future is very, very good. And we are headed in a very good direction. The bad news is very real, but it's not the only news. So let's take a good look at this whole thing. 11 months ago, when this whole thing started, and we heard that we're going to be in lockdown or in quarantine, people were horrified, shocked, unbelieving. Oh, we can't do this. This is impossible. Stay home with the children for more than 6 hours in a row? Can't be done. It can't be done. Be home with our spouse? Can't be done. Now looking back at it, the children of those parents, do they know that to their parents, spending more than 6 hours with them is unthinkable? How did we ever get into that position? Why did we consider that normal and make jokes about it? It's horrible. So the way we thought of family and our attitude towards our own children and towards our own spouses was really, really bad. And we had gotten used to it. We thought it was normal. It was funny. It was a joke. Look at our workplaces. Not go to work? Oh, that's ridiculous. Got to go to work. The workplace is so toxic. So it's so competitive. It's so greedy. It produces so much anxiety. Everyone is on medication. And we thought that was normal. We were okay with that. And then look at the schools, the disaster that the schools have become. Who wants to go back to that way of thinking? Who wants to go back to that attitude towards family? Who wants to go back to that workplace that was inhumane, destroying us from the inside? And who wants to go back to these schools that teach nothing, that do not produce human beings, decent human beings? Oh no. This break is a blessing. Because now when we look from a little bit of a distance at what we once considered normal, we realize how horrible it was. We don't want to go back to that. When are we going back to normal? No. That was not normal. We want something much, much better. So yes, it's a shock. It can be very depressing and very discouraging to think that we were so wrong on so many things. And how are we going to get it right? But we will get it right. It's just a blessing that we were given this opportunity to have a more objective view of ourselves And the world has already started to become better.
So in a
People are more
sense,
sensitive.
what you're suggesting is, and I think I would like to get to this more a little bit later, what this maybe new and improved normal could be for us and where the changes could come and how we can achieve those changes. I think that's very positive and powerful. But at the same time, in the here and now, there's a lot of people who are not yet resonating to that message, and they are going through, if we talk just on an individual level, perhaps to start, a whole lot of emotional distress. So we see, as I was mentioning before, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress way up, and there are people who are actually become quite isolated through this. Community centers closed, schools closed, schools closed. What can we help those people with to understand who, I mean, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying, but in the here and now, there is the suffering that's going on.
So the suffering comes from what we perceive. What is the shock? What is it that's now producing anxiety that wasn't there before the lockdown and before the virus? The fear of catching the virus and dying? I don't think so. I think it's having had the rug pulled out from under us. We're completely disoriented because we don't know what's real anymore. We thought reality was going shopping, going to work, going to a sports event, traveling. We thought that was life. And if that's taken away, then what is life? That's a scary question. To suddenly face the fact that we don't know what life is, for middle-aged people, that's really scary. At my age, I don't know what life is. It's embarrassing and it's frightening. So where am I going to find out? If that's all wrong, then what's right? It is scary. But it's scary good. It's like you can have your bar mitzvah all over again. And this time get it right. Or you can even be born all over again and get it right. So what they're afraid of, they need to be told. No, this is good. This is growth. Those people who are literally afraid of dying from COVID, that's your job. But in terms of hashkafa, in terms of worldview, in terms of getting our head on straight, this is very helpful to get our heads on straight. And yes, it's scary. It's kind of disruptive. The Rabbi used an analogy with somebody. The Rabbi said, when you're climbing a ladder, you got to let go of the security of the lower rung in order to get to the higher rung. So as you climb, there's a moment when you're standing on one foot on a ladder. It's like a fiddler on the roof. You feel really insecure for that moment. But that's growth. You're moving to a higher, better place.
In change is fear, of course, right? The unknown is there. People, as you said, they have a familiarity with everything that's been around them, good or bad, probably not often even thinking about whether it's good or bad. It's just what it is.
Right.
The future doesn't, or the unknown certainly doesn't have to be a source of danger. In fact, it can be a great source of opportunity, no?
Yes. And that optimism is valid. You can get better, and we will get better from all of this. After we get over the initial disorientation, loss of whatever security our habits give us, but we're looking towards a much better world.
How do we explain this to our kids then? Because we have trouble enough with this. Their understanding of it all different than ours, earlier in life than ours is, but they perhaps even more affected because at a critical developmental stage for them, they're not in school or not really in school. They're not developing those social and developmentally interpersonal skills that they need. What do we say to them, but also how do we help them? What do we do so that they can, in a sense, continue in a healthy development without having many of the things that traditionally we thought were so important for that development?
That's the good news. That's the good news. The things we thought were crucial, we got to rethink them. But we got to tell the children, this not having school and not being able to go out, this is temporary. Let's see what good we can mine from being home. Because every situation presents a possibility for life. And here's another thing that we really need to refocus. What is a good life? What is a healthy world? How do we judge? How do we measure? We want to get better. What is better? So we're confused. We're so distracted and so overwhelmed by politics. Is politics going well? Do we have good leaders, political leaders? It's a good question. It's an important issue. That's not how you measure the world. The world is not, the goodness of the world is not measured by politicians. Then we have the health problems. Is the world getting healthier or are we getting sicker? Very good question. But politics should be left to politicians and medicine should be left to doctors. That's not the question for the average human being. Question for the average human being is the world becoming morally better? That's the only thing we should care about. It's the only thing we can do anything about. So is the world getting better? Illness? No, that could be getting worse. But that's not the question. The question is, are human beings becoming more human? Better humans? The answer is yes. People are becoming much better. People.
Very interesting, Rabbi, you should say that, because if we kind of took a poll of what everybody sees on the news right now, one might easily argue that it looks like civil society is crumbling and people are getting worse.
That's just in the news. And you will not know reality by listening to the news. The news is not meant to reflect reality. It's meant to reflect sensationalism. I'm going to suggest an interesting thought. And it's a fundamentally Hasidic concept. What is the difference between human beings and the rest of creation? The animal world, the vegetable world, and the mineral world? Briefly, the answer is this. The mineral is perfectly content to be a mineral. Never complains. The vegetable is perfectly content to be a vegetable. Just don't step on it and don't pluck it before it's ready. The animal is perfectly content to be an animal. Just give it room to roam and let it do its thing. It's perfectly happy. The true nature of a human being, and I think this is crucial to our mental health, the true nature of a human being is that he is never content to be human. That's a healthy human being. The human being who is content has slipped to the level of animal. He's a happy animal. Animals are content. A human being is never content. because it is not the nature of a human being to be content being human. And the reason is, I was born human. Nothing exciting about that. So if I was born human, I live human, and I die human, what have I accomplished? I can't take credit for being human. That was given. And even if I'm the best human being in the world, it was still given. A human being needs to become something more than human. And that's not religious, and it's not spiritual. That's the nature of a human being. Now, obviously, it's easier to settle down, get comfortable, and be content. Live and let live. No, that's not life. Don't bother me, I won't bother you, and everybody will be happy. No, that's not life. Human beings should not and cannot be content being human. So we strive, we yearn, we search. Why am I here? Is that a good question? Or is that the beginnings of a depression?
Depends on how you see the answer.
Right? Or if you ever get an answer. But why the question? Animals don't ask that. Cows never ask, why am I a cow? Human beings ask, why am I male? Why am I female? Why am I Jewish? Why am I not Jewish? But we're always unsettled because that is the nature of a human being. I'm here. I've been here a long time. My ancestors were here for a long time. Human beings have been on Earth for a long time. Can we stop asking that question, why we're here? Like, what, do you know of a better place? You want to go somewhere? What's wrong with you? Settle down. No, I need a purpose. I need a challenge. I need to become something more than I am. I think that's why we join parties, we join clubs, we join armies. We want to be part of something bigger. Mm-hmm. And the only thing we can think of that is bigger is a bigger group of people.
Rabbi, you were mentioning before this notion that for a human being, it's not simply enough to stay in the nature in which they were born. That's no development.
Right.
It seems to me that COVID actually presents that unique opportunity because it forces us out of our normal. It kind of messes everything up. Is that where the opportunity then comes from to change it all up?
Yeah. So when a person complains, I'm not content, I'm not secure, I'm not settled, that could be very good. That need not be a problem.
Okay.
Actually, somebody once wrote to the Rebbe, I think it was a teenager, and he said, I'm depressed and I can't get out of bed. And the Rebbe writes back, I would love to be depressed too. But who has time for that? There's right. So much to do. So what he was doing, the Rebbe was moving this boy's attention and focus from himself to his role in life. Yes, being here is depressing, but we got something to do. So let's get to it.
It seems to me that would be a positive message for our children as well, correct? Especially during these times. That would be motivating.
So here's the Torah's message that we didn't appreciate as well as we appreciate it now. Life is not about you. Your life is not for you. We are here because we are needed, not because we're needy. Boy, if we could get this message through to children, we're going to have such a healthy generation growing up. This assumption, it's my life, that's depressing. Because if it's my life, why isn't it better? I don't like this life. I want something better. If it's my life, why can't I do whatever I want? It's my life. It is a toxic attitude because it's not true. Your life is not given to you for you to keep. It's not for you. You are given life to accomplish something for the Creator. Because otherwise, you don't need to be here at all. Just from a professional point of view, what do you think of this idea? A person comes to a therapist and says, I have this problem, that problem, I'm miserable, I'm frightened, I'm depressed, I'm worried. And the therapist says, wait a minute. You don't have all these problems because to you it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you're here or not. Doesn't matter whether you were ever born or not. Doesn't matter whether you live or not. It's not your problem. So stop claiming that it's yours. It's not yours. God created you and needs something from you, and he's not getting it. So who has a problem?
Research has always taught us.
This is God's problem, not yours.
I was just saying that research has always taught us that one gets more happiness from giving than from receiving. I guess this is in line with that same notion, though I think most patients, if you said that to them in a therapy office, would say, I need another therapist. You're not listening to what I need, right? And we go back to that sense of me.
Right. Okay. So the patient really does have to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't trust you, he can't tell him anything, actually. But if he trusts you and you say to him, wait a minute, what makes this your problem? Did you create the world? Is this your responsibility? It's not. So here's I mean, this is a little crazy, but I think when a child says, I didn't ask to be born, he's not depressed. He's precocious. So if your child says to you, I didn't ask to be born, don't put him on medication. Tell him the truth. You didn't ask to be born either. Hey, I didn't ask to be born either. Nobody asks to be born because nobody needs to be born. And that's why you never hear complaints from people who weren't born. They're totally silent. They have no problems. See, really, I mean, this is amazing stuff. The statement, God created the world, is the solution to all our problems. You don't have to read any further. The first line in the Torah is enough. In the beginning, which means before you with all your problems, in the beginning, God created the world. Now, who has problems? So a person who thinks he has a problem has got a God complex. What do you mean you have a problem? You're not God. You're not the creator. How do you have problems? You have no problems because you didn't ask to be born. So what could you possibly be worried about? I'm suggesting, and this is a little radical. Okay, it's very radical. I'm suggesting that we stop being afraid of death. It's not healthy. We can't live life just to not die. It's not working anymore. It's not adding up. So you talk to teenagers And you say, don't mess with drugs, it might kill you. And they're like waiting for the punchline. Yeah, so what do you mean? It might kill you. Yeah, so what's your point? What are you saying? I should stay alive because I don't want to die? You call that life? We're getting much smarter. The truth is dawning on us. We've had it all wrong. We assume that we are very needy and God needs nothing. Well, that is so backwards. It explains everything. It explains everything. Why should I serve God? I've got my own problems. No, you don't. You have no problems. Because as far as you're concerned, you'd be just as content if you were never born. So I look at it very simply. You invite me to a very expensive restaurant, and then you tell me that I have to pay the bill. How did that happen? You bring me into the world and then give me responsibilities. Excuse me, I don't accept this. You know the guy who was suing his parents for giving birth to him without his consent? Makes a lot of sense. Shouldn't the parents pay his bills for the rest of his life? They put him into this predicament, and now he has to pay the bills?
We have an interesting, chat question coming in here. We're going to leave questions more to the end, but I think this is kind of speaks to what you're talking about, but asks the question as well. That texter is saying people have problems with their spouses, their families, relationship, work, especially now during COVID, of course. This is their world. How is this God's problem, not their problem? They're living in these problems. I'm adding to the question, but they're living in these problems. How is that not their problem?
It's only a problem if you think that it's yours to either succeed or fail. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm a loser because I can't get along with my spouse. And I don't know why we're even married. So I'm not a good husband. She's not a good wife. Nothing's working. So yes, if you start with that premise, that I am supposed to be capable and accomplish, and then it's my problem. But if you realize God put you into this predicament, you didn't ask for it, you never signed any agreement, not even an oral agreement. So why is it your problem? Your wife is not happy. It's your problem? Or is it your mission or role to make her happy? And whose mission is this? God's mission. God created you because he needs you to make your wife happy. Why is that your problem? Either accept the mission, mission impossible. Should you choose to accept this mission, then go ahead and do it. And if not, don't do it. But don't claim that it's your problem.
It's interesting. It seems to me what you're suggesting then is that you're not the source of the problem, but in fact, you have an opportunity and maybe even a responsibility to help with the solution. If you eliminate the blame part, you can still take all these problems. It's not like you're going to ignore these problems. It's not going to pretend like my wife isn't struggling or my children aren't struggling. I don't have to carry the burden of blame, but I still can have the opportunity of helping in their change.
Yeah, and not just still have the opportunity, but now the opportunity becomes the definition of life. Life is the opportunity to help God's world. If you haven't helped yesterday, how about today? Today you're busy? Okay, how about tomorrow? Well, what are you getting depressed about? You feel so bad for God that you're getting depressed for him? The world is not ours, and even my life is not about me. My life is what I can contribute to others. So contribute. A little, a lot, today, tomorrow. Contribute. Other than that, you have no problem.
This is all forward motion. All of this, is it not?
Well, I had this beautiful little example of this. A bacher, yeshiva boy, went from New York to France years ago. He arrives at the yeshiva and he walks into the office and he says to the mashpia, who was a very wise man, he says to the mashpia, I have to call my mother. Which phone can I use? To his shock and surprise, the mashpia mimicked him and said, I need to call my mother. He said, yeah, I need to call my mother. The mashpia said, I need to call my mother? And he got the message. He said, my mother needs me to call her. Which phone can I use? And the dean said, now you're talking like a mensch. Who would have thought of that? Who would have picked up on that? He says, I need to call my mother. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Wait a minute. A teenage boy doesn't need to call his mother. Ever. Unless he runs out of money. A teenage boy does not need to call his mother. His mother needs him to call. So it's really not nice to plagiarize, to take your mother's need and claim that it's yours. So a person should start checking his own expressions. I need to go to sleep now. No, you need to stay up and do something productive, but you can't. So who did this to you? Don't say I need to sleep. That's so not right. You're a human being. You've got nothing better to do than sleep. It's a handicap that I am born with, that I'm burdened with, but it's not my choice. It's not my issue. It's not even my desire. But I have to sleep because that's how I was created. So why am I sleeping? Because the Creator needs me to. How did we become the authors of life? I need to eat? No, I need to stop eating. I can't. So it's not mine. So to even say, I need to be frum, I need to keep Shabbos, I need to be careful with kosher. What are you saying? It's not your need. So imagine a really religious grandfather is waking his grandson up and say, hey, you have to go to shul. The kid says, no, I don't. The grandfather says, yes, you have to go. The kid says, no, I don't have to. What's the grandfather going to say? I'll throw you out of the house. You'll go to hell and burn. In other words, he has nothing to say because the grandson is right. I don't need to be frum. I don't need to keep mitzvahs. They're not my mitzvahs. My Creator needs me to keep kosher. How do I steal that from him and make it mine? It's not my need.
So what does our Creator, what does Hashem then need from us now with COVID? If this is an opportunity, what opportunity does it provide us? What need can we help fulfill in this role? Again, I think for ourselves, we don't understand
we
this.
should always ask ourselves, what now? What does God want of me now?
Right.
Right? So when he takes away my school hours or he takes away my work hours, I'm left with hours. What does he want me to do with it? I'm left at home. Can you take a hint? You're stuck at home? Well, I guess he wants you to be a better husband and a better wife and a better father and a better mother. Rather obvious. In other words, whatever predicament God puts you into, there is where you need to produce goodness, godliness. So if you're stuck at home, well, where's the goodness that you have to offer your home? If you were stuck out someplace in a wilderness, what goodness can you produce there? So you're always there to serve God's purpose.
It's really not about loss at all. It's about opportunity.
Exactly. A group of women had a convention in Detroit many, many years ago. The convention was over on Sunday, and they all went to the airport to fly home, mostly to New York. But there was a snowstorm, and they closed the airport. So they wrote a note to the Rebbe saying that they were stuck in Detroit and they won't be coming back until the next day or something. The Rebbe writes back. This is over the phone, with little notes. The Rebbe writes a note. Stuck? You're stuck in Detroit? No, there's some good that you need to accomplish there. You're not stuck. You're on a mission. So the women spread out all over the airport, found every Jewish woman they could identify, and encouraged them to light Shabbos candles. Stuck? No. So wherever we are meant to bring godliness to that place, to that situation. Even anxiety. A person says, I'm very anxious. What can you do to take away the anxiety? Sometimes the answer is, why take away the anxiety? That's not your job. Your job is to serve God even when you're anxious. Just like poverty. So if you're poor, then you don't have to do mitzvahs. Or the opposite, if you're very rich, you don't have to do mitzvahs. So the real heroism is, yes, you are anxious, but it doesn't stop you from doing the right thing.
So it's really not seeing, if again, we're bringing this back to COVID, it's really not seeing this about all that has been lost, all that has been taken away, all that is changing, all that we worry will never be the same. It's really all about what opportunities does this provide me to fulfill my mission.
And we will never be the same. Isn't that good news? Why, if we're never going to be the same means we're going to be worse? Why make that assumption?
Because that's always the anxiety assumption, right? In change will be disaster. I think that's one of the other things we have to tell people, that in change there's actually opportunity. And maybe even responsibility.
Yeah. But I really think we're headed, in some Mashiach-dik way, we're headed to a time where people will no longer have needs. The whole notion is wrong-minded. Freud says you have this need. Adler says you have that need. Maslow says you have a bunch of needs. Who says that's true? I don't have needs. All I have is opportunities. Even somebody who has a suicidal impulse, a serious. The Rebbe said to one of them, every time you say no to that impulse, you are doing something for God. It's not futile. It's not Or as a mother said after her kid committed suicide, what a waste of life. I said, excuse me, it was not a wasted life. He struggled with this for years. For years, he put it off. For years, he refused. He fought back. That made the world a much better place. Because anytime you fight something dark or unholy or evil, you make the world better. Not a waste of life. Okay, it wore him down, and eventually he couldn't fight it anymore. But all those years of struggle, that's heroic. So every time we say no to our anxiety, to our depressions, to our loss of hope, if you fight it, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Person says, I don't want to fight it. Well, I'm not sure we have that option. God gives you the job he needs you to do. So if he needs you to handle this, you handle this. When something changes, you'll handle whatever the new situation asks for.
So what would you say then to people who, in a sense, are taking part of this message, not knowing that this is their message, but looking at their lives and saying, I realized through COVID that I don't really like whatever I did for a living. And I kind of realized I don't really like my spouse either. And this has given me time to reflect on all the changes I want, but their changes actually entail blowing up everything they created up until that point. That's not our desired goal here, is it?
Well, if we could do that, that's like radical tshuva. Sometimes you want to do like an incremental tshuva, like one mitzvah at a time, take it easy. Sometimes you just flip your life and it is infinitely better. If that's what's needed right now, let's do it. If God is asking us for radical change for the better, then let's make a radical change. What are we afraid of? So in Israel, some little good news. In Israel, they did a survey, a study, and they found that in the last 11 months, the divorce rate went down. They were predicting that it will go through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
It went down. Now, it may be that some of the divorces that did happen were nasty and ugly and whatever, but the fact is that fewer people got divorced than before the virus. So obviously, there are people who found new meaning in their relationships. They're suddenly very, very happy to have a spouse. It took on a new meaning. And they actually like each other and glad to have each other. So how did the experts make such a poor judgment, such a poor prediction? What was their mistake? Their mistake was that they underestimate human beings. We have a very cynical attitude towards human beings. And it's not true. Human beings are incredible. Just give them a chance. Just take away the distractions and the idols. And we came out of Egypt only after the idols were destroyed. They worshipped the Nile, not after it turned to blood and made them sick. All the idols were destroyed, and then you can go out to freedom. All our idols were destroyed. Life is not about partying. Sorry. There's no partying and you're still alive. So think again. It's not about shopping. It's not about traveling to see exotic places. Okay, so what is it about? This is not scary. This is good. This
So
is
some
good.
people are actually
The
asking
idols
questions.
were,
Again, I want to try and just summarize some thought that seems to be coming again and again here, which is those places where it's not good. For example, there has been a rise in abuse at home because of this. That's obviously not a good thing for us. Single people alone in their homes, that's not a good state for them. Uh, how do we bring all that into it? I think it's really a wonderful message of opportunity, but juxtaposed against the fact that there has been in some people's lives, and perhaps even many people's lives, an increase in suffering.
there has been, not surprising, nothing new, totally predictable. What's new, surprising, and uplifting is the other half of the story. The people who found new meaning in their marriages and their families. And a lot of kids staying home suddenly discovered their intelligence. At school, they were failures, and they were convinced that they're dumb. But at home, left to their own devices, they found books they like to read, they found projects they want to do. They're really intelligent kids, and nobody knew it. You know how the yeshivas send kids home. He's not a learner, so we can't do anything for him. Isn't that exactly what a school is supposed to do? Teach the kid to learn, make him enjoy learning. Isn't that what school is supposed to do? No, we can't have this kid in school. He's not a learner. So these kids get discouraged. They get branded. They feel like failures. Their parents are critical of them, disappointed in them. And now they stayed home. And all of a sudden, they're really bright kids.
Right.
So the good news, I think, is much greater than the negative. More good has happened than the predictable bad. The predictable bad is painful. And like any suffering ever in history, we don't understand it and we don't accept it, and we have that big question: why do the righteous suffer? Why is there suffering in the world? So we don't have an answer to that yet. But is the world looking better? Definitely. It's looking better. The world is intolerant of war. The world does not accept poverty as an inevitable reality. People who used to be starving are now not. In the last couple of years, the world has become so much better. Of course, it doesn't make it to the headlines. So the solution is don't read headlines. Cancel your subscription to the newspaper and you'll feel much better.
Is there a way, though, for all of us listening to you tonight actually to get that message out there more? Because again, if you listen to the news, and unfortunately many of us are, and it's all around us, and we're checking the numbers every day, though it doesn't seem like they change all that much. We could probably check them once a week. That'd be good enough. But there is all this frightening news. People are not looking at this as opportunity. They're looking at it as destruction. What can we do to bring out really what is much more of a positive and thriving message?
Become part of the solution. I'm not sure how much truth there is to this fear mongering. It's sensational.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing is be part of the solution. Pick up the phone and call somebody you haven't talked to in a while. See how they're doing. Just that. You will discover the finer side of life. And you don't have to go anywhere. Text them. Send them an email. But check on them. Inquire, how you doing? If you know somebody who's alone, well, what can you do to make it better? Once you start doing that, you see the world with different eyes. The world looks different. You call somebody and they thank you so much. You made such a difference to them. And all it took was a phone call. So we don't need to do any heroics. Previous generations took care of that. We had all our great heroes, our greatest scholars. We don't need heroics. The world needs a little more goodness, like the finishing touches. So little mitzvahs, not huge mitzvahs. Nothing impressive. And that's another message that God has given us. Don't go to shul with 100 people or 500 people and feel like you're doing something big. Stay home, open a siddur, and say a prayer. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to notice. There'll be no reports about it. Just between you and God for a change. I think it's wonderful.
You're describing, of course, things that all of us can do, right? They don't have to be heroic. They can be a phone call. That is making the world better. That is fulfilling the mission God is giving us. That is creating opportunity for a better world.
Yeah. Before there were telephones, people communicated through letters, through the mail. There's always a way to reach out, always. And today, it's the easiest. And you can reach out to the furthest places. Doesn't take much effort. You don't even have to be best friends. You just have to friend somebody, which is a really silly concept, but just drop a note. Drop 10 notes to 10 people. See if that doesn't change your view of life.
I have a question from a therapist who says, we need to tell our clients, you don't have the problem. It's how you perceive and understand your problem. Is that also consistent? This is certainly a notion in therapy that the problem comes in how you perceive the situation. In a sense, it's the same notion here. This is a therapeutic notion. If I see myself as opportunity and not problem.
Yeah, except that instead of telling the person that his perception is wrong, everyone's perception is wrong. This is a universal problem. Not pointing a finger at the individual and saying your perception is wrong. Everybody has the wrong idea and the wrong picture of what life is all about. So your perception is off, but you're not unique. And why is your perception off? Because nobody really needs anything. It's not that you're misreading or you're making up problems. Humans don't have problems. It's a mistake. It's been a mistake for a long, long time. Humans are vulnerable. Humans are helpless. Humans are dependent. Humans are needy. Everyone takes advantage of that. Governments take advantage of that. Philosophies take advantage of that. And religion takes advantage of that. You must pray to God every day on your knees because you're in so much trouble. You better get on his good side. Maybe sacrifice your firstborn. Or whatever it takes, because you're so desperate for his protection and for his blessings, for his attention. It is not healthy. It's not healthy. We are not victims, and we are not suffering, and we are not needy, and we are not crippled. We're here to serve Him. So here's the punchline. The choice in life really boils down to this. You can be needy, or you can be needed. If you're needy, you're laboring under false premises. If you're needed, then life is wonderful.
A really powerful and beautiful message.
We have a Sunday night program for VIPs that you might be interested in. It's informal, it's questions and answers, it's conversation. It's really relaxed, it's really pleasant, enjoyable, informative, and kind of community-like. It's a Sunday night program. There's a Wednesday morning program for the VIPs, and there's a Wednesday night program. All of it just conversation, casual, laid back, unscripted. So join us, take a look, click the link below, and see which of the three suits you best, and join us for some enjoyable conversation.